My name is Didier Lousteau, and tonight I have the privilege of hosting Anne Moses and Jen Soul. And the reason we're doing that is earlier this morning we went to the winery and filmed a part of the crush. And so we were there about 8 o'clock in the morning, not too late. Those guys were there way earlier. But we came up just on time to see the first grapes from Dutton Ranch coming up, and so we're gonna kind of comment into that, and you're gonna tell us a little bit what was happening and the reason of all that.
Well, today was an exciting day because Dutton Ranch is a very important vineyard for us. It has a lot of Chardonnay is their principal grape, and so we make only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, so it's really exciting to finally get the Chardonnay flowing. This vintage 2012 has been very cold. We've had a very cool summer, which has been absolutely wonderful for quality. And now that harvest is in full swing, we're anxious to get it going. So we've been waiting and waiting, so let's go.
So, and I didn't see you this morning. Where were you?
I was working at the office. I had to drop off our daughter at school, and I was here later at the winery for another meeting, so that all works out.
It's busy, yeah.
Everyone's busy this time of year.
That's fantastic. So we the first we started the film this morning with the arrival of the grapes, and there is the 18-wheeler truck, a flatbed truck coming up, and all like how many beans,
Well, this is approximately 24 tons. And so this is out of a field that the Duttons planted about 7 years ago. It's planted to two very, very good selections of Chardonnay. One of them is High Wente selection, which is really proving itself to be one of the best selections of Chardonnay. It's like a clone, so very similar to like a Gravenstein apple. It's a cultivar. Okay. And the Wente selection has very low yields, very concentrated juice, and has a beautiful minerality. It really keeps the acidity. And so this field is proving to be a very good addition to the Dutton Ranch portfolio. And this is a combination of two different selections. So it's exciting to see, a young vineyard now. I mean, it's only 10 years old, which is still very young by vineyard standards, and to see the potential realized. Everyone talks, but now finally we're getting down to it.
Yeah. So we can see like the beginning of that, and this is really the walls of the walls of eucalyptus. They're coming up, picking up, and so they bring this to is that a scale?
Yes. So everything has to be weighed.
Okay.
And so of course, since we're an alcohol producer, the government gets very, very concerned about the fact that everything must be weighed and accounted for. And so every pound of grapes that comes into the winery has to be weighed and put into a certified weight sheet, so that at the end of the day, we get to tell the TTB, the federal government, where all the wine came from. And so this is a single vineyard wine from Dutton Ranch, and so we want to have, provenance, clear provenance.
Okay. So you have 2 bins here. This is like,
that's almost 1 ton. Almost 1 ton. Yes.
How many barrels do you make out of that?
Well, a ton is approximately 64 cases of wine.
Okay.
2.5 barrels?
Yeah, just about.
Okay.
Yeah, a barrel holds almost exactly 25 cases.
Yeah.
So 4 barrels is 100. So,
So in order for you to receive the grapes so early in the morning, again, this is about 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. At what time those guys are working
It's a night pick. So one thing that has evolved, viticulture, of course, is thousands of years old, but as we've advanced, we've been able to make some refinements, and one of the key refinements is how we pick the grapes. And so these are picked at night under lights. And so we have these large contractor lights that light up the field, and then every picker has a headlamp that it has an LED light. And so these are picked in the cool of the night when the grapes juice hit the press. This was 52 degrees, which is very cold. That's very important for maintaining quality. The colder the temperature, the more stable the juice, the less chance there is of spoilage organisms, the more acidity is retained. It's a very positive thing. And so it's a big improvement to be able to pick at night.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that in the 14th century.
So when this not technique, but when this option you really become available to you guys?
It started in some of the hot vintages, specifically 2004. 2004 was a vintage that was very warm. We had a lot of wind blowing from the northeast. It was very dry day after day, and the warm air blew, and the temperatures were over 90 degrees for 2 weeks in a row. And there simply were not enough hours in the day. And so, necessity is the mother of invention. The growers started to figure out that we had to pick at night. And so once it got started, everyone realized it was not that challenging. And in fact, it was better for the pickers because it was much cooler.
Yeah.
And it was better for the grapes, and it's better for the winery. So now we do it a lot. Almost all of our fruit is night picked.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So, those guys are coming up here and downloading that, so it looks like a really green. We can look at the
emerald. Yes.
Yeah. Looks almost like a Concord. I don't know, isn't it? I thought it would be like a riper, like more yellow, not
First of all, this is a very cool site. Yeah. Russian River in general is considered a very cool region to grow grapes. And as a winemaker, I focus on the coldest areas inside Russian River. And so this is very close to Kiefer Ranch, directly adjoining Kiefer Ranch, which is considered quite a cool area. And so that green quality, which shows up on the camera, is a little green than it really is a testament to the acidity and the minerality that this wine is going to have, which is really important. In California, we have lots of sun, and the thing that's harder to achieve is that correct acid balance in Chardonnay. Sure. And so, I'm looking for vineyards that have that very delicate balance between ripeness and acidity.
So, Anne, so what do you fit into that? So you're a winemaker too.
Well, for years I worked with James in the enology for Patz Hall. Now I do more marketing and sales, but I love going to the wineries every vintage, tasting through the ferments, tasting through the Pinot ferments in the tank. And just, it's a great way to educate yourself on assessing the quality and the wonderful differences that come with each vintage.
Yeah. Do you you share information? Do you argue from time to time?
What we do, first of all, as a winemaker, there's a lot of decisions and you have to live with the decisions that you make. So if you decide to pick grapes, you have to live with the consequences. And one of the things...
Those are beautiful grapes.
Well, look at how tiny those are. That's the size of your hand.
It's green.
Yeah. It's...
And clearly they're delicious.
The Brisbane loves them. But the thing that is great about working with Anne is Anne has got a great palate. And so we're two different tasters. Yeah. And so when there's a situation in the winery, we each taste the wine and we speak the same language. And by that, I don't mean English. I mean, we use the same terms. We understand when somebody says, oh my God, that seems too tannic, that seems really grippy, or that's harsh, or we have a vocabulary to share. And so it builds better decision making when you have, somebody that really understands the process to taste with. Yeah. And so it's I'm very, very lucky to have somebody that I trust and believe in.
So now let's talk about that. We're looking at those beautiful grapes. They're small,
but notice how the light shines through them a little bit.
Yeah.
When the grape is truly green and not ripe, you can't see through. And those little brown spots in the middle, those are the seeds.
Okay.
And so there's a translucence to ripe grapes. And if you were to hold this up in front of the sun, you could see all the seeds kind of in silhouette.
And the seeds, when the grapes are ripe, are brown. They're not green.
So you can see the little brown, brown pips. And one thing about the Wente Clone Chardonnay, which is what this is notice how small some of the berries are. The size of the berry is dictated by the pollination cycle. So when the vine flowers, the amount of pollen that's brought into the berry determines how many seeds there are. Yeah. And the Wente selection does not produce as many seeds, and so the berry stays smaller. That has two consequences. One is the yields are much lower, but two, the concentration's higher. And so we want concentrated, dynamic, flavorful wine. So having those small berries is a very good thing when it comes to Chardonnay.
Yeah. So so you mean the fruit, maybe a little bit the grapes, maybe a bit bigger and all that.
Right. So typically when a grape selection is chosen, there's lots of criteria, and one of them is yield.
Yeah.
And so if you have a vineyard, let's say in the Central Valley, having high yields is really important because that's going to make you successful. In the Sonoma Coast, and particularly, we want higher quality wine, and one of the best ways to do that is to have lower yields.
Yeah.
And so these selections that produce very small berries give better quality of wine, but of course with lower yields they're much more expensive.
Sure.
And so this selection would never be planted in, say, a vineyard that goes into Gallo or something.
Okay.
It's really focused for single vineyard high-end wines.
Yeah.
And that makes the grapes a lot more expensive. Because the yields are much lower.
Yeah,
you do all the same work for half the quantity of grapes.
Sure.
That's agriculture.
But it's worth it.
Yeah, sure.
So this step that we're doing right now, we're dumping the grapes into the press. This is called whole cluster pressing.
Okay.
And it's very inefficient because inefficient because it takes up a lot of space and it's very slow, one bin at a time. A large-scale winery would want to be processing, 5 times this amount, and they would have a lot more machinery. One thing that I really believe in is eliminating the machinery. So the closer the grapes get to the barrel and the fewer machines they pass through, the better. And so we take it right out of the vineyard and pour it right into the press. Now the press uses air pressure to produce juice, and that juice goes right into barrel. We're
gonna see that a little bit later. So, but I don't understand the inefficient for the big wineries, or
it's inefficient because we do it one bin at a time. Every bin is dumped.
I got you.
The space that these whole clusters take up is a lot more space. If we ran this through a machine that broke the grapes down first, we'd get more into a press.
Right. I mean, larger wineries would have these huge hoppers that could hold tons and tons
Truckloads
of grapes, and then trucks would come in with 5 tons bins and just dump it in, and then they auger it in, process the fruit, and with each step you open up the berries, you oxidize the juice, introduce the possibility of microbes or and just less quality of wine, getting more tannin from the skins and the stems. So
whole cluster pressing is something that started in Champagne, really, where the grapes are so acidic and lacking in sugar that if you bruise them and aggressively process them, they get bitter. And so we've taken some of those techniques that the Champenois have done, and of course they went to Burgundy first, and from Burgundy we've studied the Burgundy methods. And so gentle handling of the fruit is really one of the key building blocks to being respecting the terroir. The whole point of being gentle with the fruit is we want the vineyard to express itself. Yeah. We don't want to lose anything in the processing. The simpler the processing, the more direct the processing, the less machinery, the clearer the language from the vineyard. Yeah. And so it costs more money, but because this machine, for instance, is made in Switzerland, costs many hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it produces better wine.
So what does that mean? $100,000.
This is almost $100,000.
Oh, is that right? This is a house.
Yeah. Made in
in some places,
anything,
not California.
Anything in
this is my house. There's so much money in my house. This is my house now. I could live in it.
Yes, you could.
It'd be a little cold.
And uncomfortable.
100% stainless.
So what we is like so
we're tumbling the grapes now, and so when we fill the press, they fall into the press, and now we need to distribute the grapes through the full cylinder of the press. And see these little slots here? Yes. That's where the juice comes out. Okay, and so the part of the press that's solid is inflated with compressed air, and it presses against a rubberized membrane, and the grapes are pushed against the screen. And so imagine taking grapes and crushing them in your hand. It's the same way. You press the grapes, and thus it's a wine press, and the juice comes out. And so it's kind of a combination of a squeezer and a sieve.
Sure.
So we want to get rid of the skins, the seeds, and the stems.
So here we can see it like coming up like from the floor, and like a dump into the chimney, the chute.
Yep, and that dumps it into the press.
Yeah.
And so very direct is the key. Okay. And when the juice comes out, the juice changes depending on the pressure. Okay. And so one of the steps here is that we only take the juice from the beginning of the press cycle. Okay. That's called the free run juice. And then at about 1.4 bar or 1.4 times the atmospheric pressure, we separate the juice, and that's called press juice. Okay. And we sell that in bulk typically. And so back to that bitterness and the whole point of whole cluster pressing, we want to separate the bitter, harder components from the end of the press from the pure, more gentle, freer, earlier parts. And so that's another way to improve quality, and it's another way, of course, to spend money because now we take 20% of the juice and we throw it away.
So is there like, I've seen like, Anderson, all that, so you jump in this, I saw some leaves coming up into that.
Yeah.
That's not an issue. That's not an issue like it would be like in a red wine or something like that, right?
If we had a very aggressive press,
yeah,
the leaves would be a problem. But with we're only, 1.4 bar, which is very, very gentle.
Very gentle,
this is not a fraction of what your hand would even use. And so the leaves just lay in there. There's no consequence.
That's awesome.
Plus, in the vineyard, the guys are pulling out all the leaves from their picking bins, and then usually they have someone on the actual half-ton bins picking out the leaves, picking out any bad clusters or, dirt clods.
Yeah, a lot of things have been thrown away.
Yeah. Well, because it's all clusters, but, like for red wine, for instance, like you see like people around the picking table just like grabbing all the what are you call it?
Sorting. Since red wine is fermented on the skins, you want to get rid of all the leaves. Any leaf inside the red fermenter is a problem because the leaf is then broken down during the fermentation process and you get much more green character. Here, the leaf is only in contact with the berry and the juice flows right around it.
That's right, in and out. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this pressing cycle takes 2.5 hours. So it's, speed is very important with white wine because of the delicacy of the aromatics. The fact that it is not fermented with the skins, we want to protect the juice from oxidation and from exposure. And so speed is important. That's one reason we have this big press.
That was amazing because, really, truly, guys, so we started at 8 o'clock in the morning and everything was a bit quiet when it came up. And then when the truck came up here, they took care of the truck in minutes. That was downloaded, that was weighted, that was done to the, that was efficient.
Well,
that was like,
It's we built this winery in 2007, and when we first started, we started our company in 1988. And one of the objectives of building our own facility was we wanted to have the proper way to do things very efficiently. Yeah. And so the idea was that the winery would not be an impediment. Yeah. It would be a conduit. So we can process and do whatever we need to do, no matter how crazy it is. And the winery is not a restriction. And so I'm very, very lucky as a winemaker to have a very flexible, efficient winery.
So how you guys came up with the design of the winery? That was like the four partners sit down here and
I designed this. This is my third winery that I've designed. And there were quite a few concepts that were absolutely essential. One of them is that it had to be designed for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Okay.
Those are the only two varieties we make. And that is a more specific design than something that also makes Zinfandel and Cabernet and Merlot and all these other wines.
In what way?
Well, mostly in like this large press. Yeah. It is designed to do whole cluster whites. If it was designed to do reds, it would be a much smaller press.
Okay.
And so the other would be fermenter size. Since we work with Pinot Noir, we want small fermenter size, open top fermenters. So so we can punch down, use whole cluster, and so that's an entirely different fermenter type than you would use for Cabernet.
Okay.
And so it's just a little difference. It's very modern. The building was brand new when we moved in, and so all the native yeast, all the bacteria were brought in our barrels. So we inherited nobody else's yeast, nobody else's bacteria.
Pristine.
Absolutely pristine. And so the native yeast population in this building is perfect.
Right. And so in 2010, all our Chardonnays were fermented with indigenous yeast.
Oh, wow. So let's talk, let's take a couple of seconds, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about, indigenous versus
cultured yeast.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay, so cultured yeast is a product that, much like baking, so it is specifically designed to ferment in a certain way, either produce certain aromatics or mouthfeel or clarity or strong fermenting. Indigenous yeast is kind of a non-defined collection of different types of yeast that have different flavor and aromatic profiles that aren't well defined.
So you're talking about
it's kind of the difference between having baked bread with Fleischmann's yeast and then using a sourdough starter. It's you get a different type of flavor from the different kinds of yeast.
And you guys, but you know that one is maybe a little bit more consistent than the other one because from your. And are you okay with that? Or does that bring like some challenge into that?
It's more risk. Commercial yeast reduces risk, and the level of complexity with native yeast is that there's many different species that do the fermentation. There's some yeast that ferment in the beginning and die early. There's some that are much better at finishing a fermentation. So you get this succession of microbes. And for every microbe that grows in that wine, the aromas and flavors that it creates are slightly different. When you use commercial yeast, you dominate and you destroy all the competition. So you essentially have the microbes, the byproduct of that yeast is much simpler because there's only one yeast. So you get more complexity versus risk. Now, that's a decision every winemaker has to make. Now, the advantage of commercial yeast is that they've been selected for some very desirable traits. Aromatics, you can get some very delicate, pretty, fruity aromatics. Riesling would be a great example where maybe you'd want to use commercial yeast. Because you want a purity whereas, say, Pinot Noir or Chardonnay, where you want more complexity in native yeast. And it is, it's a stylistic question, and also if you're an employee at a large winery and you're working with millions of dollars worth of grapes, and it's your responsibility to make it come out right. You know, I hear a lot, I want to sleep at night.
Well,
for me, I'm a winemaker and I'm an owner of the company. And so when I take risk in the winemaking process, I risk my own money and my own, my own wine. And so I'm willing to risk more. Because I want greater wines. I mean, my whole objective is better wine.
What was the best wine you ever made, in your opinion? Pick one.
Probably 2002.
High Chardonnay.
For you too, huh? 2002 was a great year. Very cold, very dreary spring, and a little cold for it to be a really good Cabernet year. But since it was Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, it was a terrific year. Another one was the 1990 Chardonnay. Still one of my favorite vintages.
That was a few years after you started.
It was the Napa Valley Chardonnay.
But 1990 had frost and rain, and it was miserable, and the yields were this big, and the wines were, really good.
What was it? Because you put so much energy and passion into that. That was like,
It was the weather.
Like a flavor.
Vintage is pretty much just run by the weather and the growing season, so.
Well, but I mean, I'm saying, because it was so difficult to do vintage. What is it like so your vintage, your favorite vintage are more driven by the difficulty of the vintage itself?
No, the final product, the beauty of the wine that was produced in that vintage, certainly.
It's unpredictable. Some vintages that you think should be fantastic they're good, but they don't have that little extra that makes it fantastic. And, there's a saying, sometimes boring vintages make boring wines. I mean, you look at, say, the 1997 vintage in Napa, a legend, a lot of great wines made, but, they're not really as complex and as amazing as
I'll tell you, this vintage wasn't as good as what people were saying. I just want
Well, we never know. I mean, the thing is, you pay your money, you take your ride.
And then you evaluate the wines over time.
1990, 2002, 2012.
Well, what I've seen of 2012 looks very, very good. So we had, almost perfect conditions in the vineyard. So that is a beautiful place to start. I mean, when things go right with the weather and the viticulture, you're holding good cards. And now the question becomes, is it great or is it just really good? And that just has to be borne out through making the wine and tasting. As a winemaker, we get a lot of credit for wines, and really they're made in the vineyard, they're made by the microbes, and my job is just not to screw them up. Make sure that they're good and they're well balanced, and I don't know how they're going to turn out.
Yes, I can assure you have more impact in the wine than you like to,
But one of my goals is to have less to do. because
so you're lazy.
No, you really want to make the vineyard and the grapes speak for itself and produce the wine that comes from that earth.
Well, when you go and taste these wines and you ask the winemaker how they made them, they go, well, I picked the grapes, put them in the tank, fermented them, aged them, bottled it. No problem.
Well, that's what people are saying, and I've been thinking about it because people ask me, well, this is a lazy thing, and I'm thinking that should be a good thing for you to do. Just like everybody say that the vineyard, the wine is made into the vineyard, and then you put it in the barrel, you let it, And
here's the juice. Now, what we were pressing is now going into tank, and I'm measuring the sugar content.
And it looks a lot like apple juice, freshly pressed apple juice.
And so this is a refractometer, and that's 4 bricks right there. Now, my target is 23.8, so that's pretty close. And so this the first juice out of the press, and notice the door is open. This is not the complete pressing cycle. So as the press moves through the pressure, the sugar usually goes down a little bit. So at the end of the day, when I measured this, it was 23.8.
Okay.
So boom.
Yeah.
And so there it is. This is the door is open, so the juice is rising since it's being pumped in from the press on the bottom. But the aromatics, you tasted it. To me, it reminds me of a pear, fresh pear, a green apple, like a Gravenstein or almost a Granny Smith apple.
A very beautiful acidity. I love that. I remember being a kid, Mark was making wine too in France, and the worst wine in the world, Sorry about that, but it's true though. So it allows me to critique the wine, and when I think the wine is not that good, it's not that good. But this is one of my favorite parts. The crunch of first, the pre-run juice pretty much coming up out of it. It's so sweet. This
and delicious and aromatic. Apples and pears and peaches and melons.
It's confusing. And later on, I think maybe on camera. We see. So I'm not going to overshoot that.
But the complexity of the grapes, you can see that in the juice.
Yeah.
When you taste something, juice from a grape vineyard, there's a lot of flavors and a lot of aromas there. It's not the same as the wine, but complex juice makes complex wine. Yeah, for sure. Here we are at the top of the tank.
So all right, so we were down on the bottom and
seeing the juice fill up the tank.
Yeah, fill up the juice, and now we took the studio up here. I'm thinking about something. I don't know quite yet what it is, but okay,
You're thinking about how great that beret looks.
I wasn't thinking that much. Just that this is
the very top of the tank. So this is a.
So how big is this room here? This is how many tanks do you have there?
There's 24 tanks in this room.
Okay. Yeah. What is the size of the tanks?
Well, they go everywhere from 500 gallons to 10,000 gallons.
Okay.
Yeah. And so some are blending tanks, some are settling tanks. One of the things that I was able to do was design the tanks specifically for unfiltered wines.
Oh, man.
And so the main use of these tanks, of course, is 2 times during the year. Once during harvest to take the juice right before we go to barrel. That juice will be in barrel by tomorrow morning. And then the other is when we're ready to bottle, we don't filter the wines. Yeah. They go in the tank and they settle. And so the tanks hold the wine to allow for all the yeast and the tartrates and all this precipitates to settle to the bottom of the tank. So then we take the clean wine off the top. So no filtration.
So you're saying from those tanks fill up to the top.
That's when we're ready to bottle.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But then at first, no.
The juice is going to be in there for literally 12 hours, 14 hours. Then we're going to go to barrel.
Okay. Right now we're looking at what this is the
empty the red
from us.
Empty the red fermenter.
Yeah. From a Pinot Noir.
Actually, it's a strange deal. It's Carignan.
Oh, it's Carignan.
So this is a good friend of mine, Bedrock Wine Company. Yeah. And so since I don't use these big tanks during the harvest because they're not open tops, and I only ferment Pinot Noir for us, I bring in some of his grapes and ferment.
Oh, is that right? So Carignan will go into that, and
Yep. So this is it would be called custom crush.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I get to see all sorts of interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm gonna be. I don't know if are we gonna? We have the shot from the top of the.
Yeah.
Passed it already. Oh, okay. So that will be on the final cut. And then here you go. So, listen here. Let's talk about this here. So here we went through from the truck to the scale to the press to the tank, and that's eventually when where this poor wimpy clone is going to end up.
So this is the barrel room. Yeah. This is the barrel room. So tomorrow morning we're going to take that juice out of the tank and put them into these French oak barrels. So these barrels were filled a few days ago. We only use French oak to ferment all of our Chardonnay. Yeah. Now this, of course, is a classic technique. It's been around for hundreds of years. And the juice goes into the barrel, the native yeast slowly build and eventually ferment the sugar. Yeah. And so this is a process that will take 3 weeks to a month to complete the entire fermentation. And this is a example of one of the barrels we use. If you look closely at the bottom, you can see that it says 3 year in the year 2012. That implies, or that means that the oak has been air dried or seasoned for 3 years. Right. So this was a tree standing in the forest 4 years ago, and it was cut down and made into staves, which are the little thin boards that make the barrel up. So there's usually about 30 staves in a barrel. Yeah. And those staves are then aged out in the elements, so the rain and the sun and the snow and the wind softens the wood. Softens the resin.
30 staves in the barrel?
Yeah, about.
Oh, really? Yeah. I never
anywhere from 28 to 32.
Oh, is that right? Really?
It depends on the thickness. And so the cooper has to take only perfect grain. Yeah. No knots, no wavy parts. And so the staves are different thicknesses based upon the artisan cooper eyeing the wood and making that selection. So these barrels are, well, they're the best you can buy. There's different forests in France, and the thing about the wood from the different forests is that it has different grain thicknesses based upon how much water and rain and sun it gets. Yeah. And so typically the colder forests have smaller growth rings. Those growth rings deliver they call it tight grain.
Yeah, it looks like, some.
So this is made in Chauny-Bourgogne. You see that Grand Cru sticker up there? Yeah. This is Sagamoreau's best barrel. They select their tightest, most elegant wood. So the impact into the wine is very restrained.
And more subtle.
More subtle. It builds the terroir. It doesn't dominate with a heavy oaky flavor.
It's like a young virgin. Very...
Oh, dear.
Just like the tree is. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, but, so those are about $10. So, right?
800 euros.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's more.
Yeah. And so it's a little different. Now, see, the fact most barrels are made from wood that's aged 2 years. But I prefer the flavors of wood that's been aged 3 years.
How you came up to that? How you came?
Just tasting, evaluating the wines and doing barrel trials and looking at different coopers, different ages of the wood days, also the different toast levels.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I buy the wood ahead. And so by controlling the wood early, I know how long it's been aged. Yeah. And so most people would call their cooper and they would pay for the barrel when it arrives. Yeah. I pay for part of the barrel as wood back when it's made into staves, and I pay for the other part when it's arrived. So in other words, I have clear control over the wood, where it's aged, how long it's aged, what kind of barrel it's going to be. So there's it's a very direct connection. So it's very clear what the barrel should taste like.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, I didn't know that you guys are doing trials, barrel trials, every year, because every year is like, that grape is like a change every year, or
once we've gone to this 3 year where we purchase the wood, it becomes more about consistency. Okay. And so we change the toast levels a little bit. We have a medium toast and a medium plus toast. So one has a little more of that toasted almond, the marzipan, slightly smokier. Yeah. And another one is a little more vanilla, more cinnamon clove. And so it's very subtle. And you could tell the difference if you tasted the wine, but it's really the combination of the two. Yeah. And the oak is a supporting role. I mean, if you're talking about the oak in my wines, I've screwed up and I've added too much oak. Yeah. It's about the vineyard.
You know, just I don't want to skip away from the wine yet, but I think the tri-tip is like burning right now.
Smoke. Speaking of smoking,
you don't mind like looking at the thing being charcoal there. I mean, I get carried away by the conversation. We've been like talking for like.
Beautiful view right here.
So these barrels have a wine juice in them that's fermenting.
Yeah.
And this juice is about half completed with fermentation. And so this particular barrel that you have your hand on has about 12% sugar.
Yeah.
So it started at just under 24% sugar.
So what will be the alcohol of this one year? 24 dropped down to
24 will be low 14% alcohol, and so 23.8 will be right at the 14% break, right in there.
Okay.
And so to my taste, 13.8, 13.9 to 14 is kind of the range of alcohol.
Yeah.
But there's no absolute number. It depends on the concentration, the style of wine. The key is not the absolute number, just like acidity or anything else. It's about the balance and the personality.
Yeah.
And so, the number can, an alcohol level of 13.5 can taste hot if the wine is very thin and has no, substance, or some wines can have 15 alcohol and they seem perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
I think it's a misconception that a lot of people have that alcohol is this absolute number that always tastes the same. It doesn't. It depends on the wine and all the other components in it. And it's about balance of flavor and aroma and texture. And so if you have the proper balance, then the alcohol is just one component in there, and it doesn't stand out. That's the key. You don't want to taste alcohol.
Yeah.
You want to taste everything at once.
Yeah.
You want a big flavor that is just well melded together.
Yeah.
Integrated.
Yeah.
And
And
collected.
in America, if it doesn't have alcohol, that's fine. As long as
No
there
alcohol,
is
no
like
wine.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me a little bit like, there's like, people that are very susceptible to TC or, and just like, oh, I get that, And then people are also like susceptible to alcohol. Oh,
Right.
it's still alcohol. And they just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You're
But I mean,
a super taster.
but well, yes and no. But I mean, sometimes some people are just have to say something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what we're talking about. So I don't know. It's just
Everyone is
Right. And I tell people, it's like, what should I think about this wine? And it's like, well, do you like it? I mean, that's the most important question.
and that's a very beginning of it. Yeah.
Like, I like this wine.
Yeah.
It tastes delicious to me, so enjoy it.
That's right. Yeah. So, Anne, you like a Chardonnay, Pinot Noir? What is your favorite varietal between those two?
Oh, between those two wines, I think I'm actually partial to Chardonnay.
Yeah, really. Okay.
In Pinot Noir, but I drink all different wines
I'm
from
sure
all
you-
over
yeah,
the world
yeah.
and enjoy every different aspect of all the wines of the world.
Besides Patz Hall, what has been your favorite Chardonnay you ever had?
New World or Old World?
Well, like one of each. How's
One
that?
of each. Okay, for New World, I would say probably Kistler.
Oh, is that right? From the Bottom Vineyard?
Probably, I really like the McRae.
Okay.
Consistently.
What vintage?
God, that's a hard one.
We don't drink those all the time.
We don't drink those all the time.
Well, that's what you should remember.
I know I should remember that. I will pick a vintage like 2005. Good year. Kind of, not as hot as 2004. I like vintages that are a little cooler. I like a little bit more
Sure.
acidity
Yeah.
in my wines. And then for the Old World, the wines of LaFleur are amazing.
Yeah, the flavor.
They're just beautiful and beguiling. But there's, more Cabernet.
Yeah.
Those are consistently really good wines. I like the Dovis wines from Chablis.
And love Chablis. I love
Vincent
Chablis.
and Renee.
Yeah,
Those are amazing. And there's lots of really good producers all over.
Could you make a wine like Fumant with Chablis? California?
Oh, I think it's possible, sure, but it wouldn't be the same.
We don't have to
even though there's so many comparisons between Pinot Noir and Burgundy and Chardonnay and Burgundy, they are very, very different terroirs, and so there might be a similarity, but it wouldn't be the same wine.
Yeah.
And I think to try to reproduce somebody else's wine, like say I want to make Grand Cru Chablis, is a fool's errand, the thing you should do as a winemaker, in my opinion, is listen to your vineyard and try to make the best wine that vineyard can give you. And if you don't like what the vineyard has, go find another vineyard. But don't try to make that vineyard something that it's not. It's a disservice to the vineyard, and it's a disservice to your customer. Nobody wants a replica or an imitation. That's
but surely, but there is some places in California where you have maybe a vineyard that kind of
Sure.
come close to that, and if you were to come to find this vineyard, this were you doing that, or you say like, I'm not here to make Chablis, I'm gonna do like the Chardonnay.
I want the vineyard to have character, personality, to speak in a voice, and if it happens to speak French, well, that's okay too. To me, we bottled 16 wines, only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. They all are different.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of room under the tent for something that's different.
Yeah.
And for me, it's if it tastes like Chablis, great. I love Chablis, but it's Chablis.
It's really because like you are actually really working on this you have 16 different labels, and earlier this morning we talked, and you told me that the winemaking for every vineyard was absolutely the same. Maybe
very close.
The adjustment of barrels from some of the vineyards, but that was the same treatment for everything.
Yes.
So so all cluster for all the Chardonnays and all that.
Maybe all barrels fermented. Some of the single vineyard wines get a little bit more higher percentage of new French oak.
Yeah.
But we like that the winemaking is very transparent, because then the identity of the vineyard can really start shining.
You like good parents.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. It's like it's like this is the way it's gonna be. That
But
your brother did not have this, you're gonna have that either.
I mean, the winemaking is very important.
Yeah.
Because that allows the process to happen. But at the same time, I don't want it to be about the winemaking. This is not about how good I am manipulating yeast and barrels and bottling and filtering. It's about me getting out of the way and being transparent. It would be like saying that a chef, when you cook a beautiful piece of fish, you want to respect the ingredients.
Yeah.
You really want to respect the ingredients, and that's my job.
Yeah.
To give it the right environment to be great, but not interfere too much. Yeah. Which takes a long time.
How you guys met?
At a wine tasting.
Yes, we met.
Is that right?
Yes, in Santa Cruz.
Oh, that's
at an Austrian wine tasting.
No, I want to hear from you.
Oh, yes,
So, when I came to college, I fell in with a bunch of people who liked wine. So when I met James at an Austrian wine tasting, which was at the time, well, this was very long ago.
1981?
Yes, 1981. So with that, we developed a love of wine together.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, we did.
Among other things.
Among other things, yes.
We hit it off right away.
That's fantastic.
And the day after the wine tasting, I realized that we were in the same math class.
Oh, is that right?
And so one of the things I learned was that her father was a thermodynamicist, and he worked for TRW, and he designed satellites. So he's a rocket scientist, and I'm thinking, wow, she's really cute. She knows how to taste wine. I had a great time. And plus her dad's a rocket scientist. Maybe I should sit next to her in math class. And so it's like, hey, Ann, what do you think about this derivative? And so what started as, just common sense, I fell in love immediately. I'm still in love.
Did she like, yeah.
Nope. Never. Nope. She would help me all I wanted at home, but not on the test. No. Still, that's
right. So you open a bottle of Pinot Noir. I think we're already beyond the hour, but let's talk about the Pinot Noir because you opened it, and let's talk about it. So.
Do you want to talk about the Chardonnay for a moment, though? Because this is a very interesting wine. So this is a very small production. One of the things we do every year is we look for one of the little blocks inside of a vineyard to that really shows its character. In a particular, some years a vineyard, it does something very special, and it doesn't. Most years a great vineyard does it, but every once in a while there's something that just happens that is special.
Yeah.
And this vineyard did this in 2010. This is a section of Dutton Ranch, so the grapes that we saw, but this is a slightly different block, planted in 1969.
It's some of the oldest grapes that we get.
1969.
And that's, you don't find
older than you.
No, I'm doing the math. I'm a bit slow today. I was 5 years old.
There you go.
I was 75, and now this is, I was 75.
So this is a very important vineyard because in 1969 there was not that much Chardonnay in Sonoma. Everyone thinks Sonoma and Chardonnay have gone forever, but no. In the early 60s, and specifically 1963, there were less than 300 acres of Chardonnay in the whole state of California. And so this was a very important vineyard. It showed the potential. And other people, they tasted wines from this vineyard, and they say, wow, I'm getting rid of my apples, I'm planting Chardonnay.
And another reason why this vineyard is so long-lived, it was planted on St. George, which was resistant to phylloxera when many people were planting on AXR, excuse me. That, and it's also dry farms. Yeah. So very unusual to have a dry farm vineyard in California.
Because there was no irrigation back in 69. There was no drip irrigation.
And the root is also like a clone, isn't it?
Yes. That's where this came from. That's why. So the root selection came from this vineyard.
Okay.
Yep. So they named the clone after the vineyard.
It has nothing to do with Leslie.
No.
Just kidding.
No.
All right.
So it's named after the Rood family. Yes. And so they've been there since for decades.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But it's farmed by the Dutton. Yeah. Right across from the Dutton Ranch.
And how big is the vineyard again?
Well, this particular section is 9 acres.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we get about 2.5 tons of the acre there. Sometimes it has 4, but average it's just under 3.
What is the temperature you should be drinking this wine here?
I like 58 degrees.
Yeah.
58?
I think most restaurants serve their whites too cold and their reds too warm.
Okay.
For me, a rich, expressive white should be somewhere around 58. And the reds should be about 62, 63, 64, in that range. Room temperature is not your room. It's cellar temperature.
Sure, yeah.
And a good cellar is 58 degrees. And so for me, when you pull the wine out of your cellar and you bring it into the kitchen, it should condense a little water on there. It should form just a little bit of that dew.
Yeah.
And if the glass is dripping with water, it's too cold. See, this glass has there's no condensation.
Yeah,
That's and notice the slight haze. This is filtered. This little tiny bit of haze there.
But it's really a light gold with some little green tints to it, which means that it's not.
You don't mind if we keep going? Yeah. We don't mind if we keep going because let's talk about the inserter and the filtration. It's going to be a good. You're going to have a lot of material, you guys. So let's talk about this thing here. So inserter, like you said, definitely the glass are clean. But there is this kind of haze.
That's a little bit of yeast
left. And maybe a little bit of tartrates. I mean, that's the reason why we have the tank, so we get the good settling. So the clearer the wine, the more flavor you'll get. If you've got a lot of sediment, you're going to taste leaves and yeast, and you're going to taste, if tartrate's in there, they're going to melt and they're going to be kind of sour or salty. So that's why if you want to go unfiltered, you really have to make a commitment to have a very clean, brilliant wine.
But we don't want it too clean, because one of the things about having small amounts of yeast left in the wine is it absorbs oxygen. Just the way champagne can age very, very long when it's still on the yeast. The yeast scavenge the oxygen. And so this unfiltered wine will age much, much longer than something that has been sterile filtered where all of that yeast has been pulled out.
So this is what we call a leaf fermentation.
Yes, the wine is aged sur lie, and in effect, what's happening in the bottle is you get kind of a little mini sur lie, where there's just enough solids in there to change the way the wine oxidizes. And so it ages longer. It protects it, exactly.
So do you want to pick one camera maybe? Which one should we pick and tell people that, having like a little, a cloudiness into the wine, that's a good thing?
Yeah.
Let's take this camera and you know, cloudy is
Cloudy's
good.
not a bad thing.
It's good.
Just as long as it's not too much.
All right.
You should still be able to read through it. Still be able to clearly
I
see.
can, yeah.
I mean, if it's murky and sludgy, that's
Okay, that's the issue.
But you know, like a lot of fine wine, it's balanced.
Okay.
And when you look at a great old wine, it is not brilliantly clear. There's almost always a little bit something there.
Yeah. What do you think this wine? If I were to buy this wine, this 2010 Patz Hall, how long you think I can keep it? I mean, is it like ageable? Is it like 10 years?
Yes. 10 years is a long time for
Absolutely.
anyone, first of all. But it depends on the cellar.
5 years?
Personally, I like the wines 5 to 6 years from vintage.
Okay.
So this would be, I think, really striking, perfect at 2015, 2016, 2010.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that it's not, I mean, right now, I think it's tasting great.
Yeah.
This wine has improved a lot since we bottled it.
Yeah.
And this drinking window is going to be very, very long. It's going to be 6, 7, 8 years, maybe 10 years. But trying to predict how long a wine will age is very challenging.
It's also dependent on the vintage. If it's a cooler vintage, you've got a little bit more acidity that helps wine age more.
Yeah.
So like the 2002 High, that Chardonnay that we spoke about before, we love that wine because it's got the acidity and the brightness that keeps it going.
And you love, is that your favorite wine too, the 2002 High?
It's one of the great vintages. Personally, I think the 10s have huge potential. The 2010s, to me, the way they're tasting, the way they're evolving, could be one of the vintages we've had in a long time. They're concentrated and muscular, but elegant. It's like, there's this dynamic combination between power and elegance that you don't always see. Often you get these vintages that are very powerful, and some vintages you get that are very elegant, but when they meet in the middle, it's something special, and I think we have that in the 2010.
What is the biggest bottle you make at the winery for consumers?
3 liters. And then
5 liters.
Well,
occasionally we make 5 liters for.
Sometimes we bottle 5 liters.
For auctions. I mean, we don't usually sell them. We have them as donations because a lot of the auctions want the large format because they really have a lot
But the largest for sale is 3.
Yeah.
And they make very few. Personally, I think a Magnum is the best size.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Magnum ages.
I love big bottles.
There's something special. It's beautiful.
It's just big, classy. I mean, I love it.
The old joke in Champagne, Magnum is the perfect size for you and your wife when your wife's not drinking. Because it's 2 bottles of wine. But it doesn't age twice as long, it ages like 4 times as long. And there's a harmony that a Magnum gives you that's just, it's hard to beat.
So the 2010 may be your favorite vintage, but what has been made before? Don't copy, try to do what you.
There's been some really good vintages. I like the 99, the 2001, the 2002.
2008, yes.
2008.
Pretty, really elegant wines, kind of like, I think of like a really strong dancer with really lean muscles, just like sleek, of course.
And there's a great example because nobody thought the 2008s were going to be any good. It was hot. We had all the smoke. We had frost. It was a crazy year. And yet the wines on the back end are like, whoa. Every time you taste them, they're like, that's better. That's better. That's better. And so for me, it's about the changes in aging. And you see this trajectory. And the 8s they're tasting great.
So 2008 is much better than what you thought it would be at the time of harvest. And this is
exactly. And then an example on the other side would be the 2007s. I think the 2007s haven't quite, I taste them side by side, and I like the 2008s better now. Mm-hmm. And when I first made them, I was absolutely convinced the 2007s would be better between the two. And so maybe at 10 years of age, the 2007s come back because the 8s are very precocious, very forward. And the 7s are kind of, they're slower to develop.
And we like to do verticals. Usually we just pull out, say Hyde Vineyard Pinot Noir and just lay them out and taste them and see where they're at and how they're developing and, think about back on the vintage and see if we can gather some knowledge that really helps us with future vintages.
But, I live with these wines every day and I still can't tell you exactly how they're going to age. Yeah. It's a bit of a mystery, and I'm not certain why one ages 15 years and the other one doesn't.
So what is that was, that was like outstanding. And on top of that was the very first time we were doing that. So that was an experience that was great. Tell me a little bit So you have a tasting room that is here in Napa.
Tasting one, yes.
And tell me a little bit what a member can expect. You know, I'm coming up to Napa Valley. I love Pinot Noir, the Pinsat, and I heard of Patz Hall. You have a tasting room. Are you open to the public? This appointment?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So we're open to the public on Tuesday through Sunday, and we have a more casual bar tasting experience where you come in without an appointment, sit down, enjoy a couple of wines. If you'd like to purchase a small plate of food, we provide that. We also have we have a couple different more elaborate sit-down experiences. The first is our single vineyard tasting. So you taste 3 single vineyard Chardonnays and 3 single vineyard Pinot Noirs with a plate of seasonal complements. And what we do is we go through each of the wines and talk about the differences. And when people have 3 different Chardonnays from 3 different single vineyards next to each other, they can really see the differences. Sure. It's hard to tell one by one if you're just even, but the ability to go back and forth and taste the different textures and the different flavors for both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay is a great learning experience for our customers.
And serve at 58 degrees.
Served at 58
Served
degrees,
at the perfect temperature,
and then,
in the perfect glass.
And this summer we just started our wine library tasting. So what we have done is we've partnered with the Oxbow Cheese merchant, and we have selected a plate of cheeses that will complement Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs. From that, we pick out certain library wines, both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So currently we're doing the 06 Hudson from Carneros, which is amazing, textural, soft, oily wine, and then also the 06 Alder Spring Chardonnay, which is from Mendocino, which has always been this mineral-driven, kind of old world in its styling wine. With that, we also have some older Pinot Noirs. We're doing some 08s. We're doing some 06 Pizzoni. And then for the group, because we require 8 people to come, we give them a choice of what library magnum they'd like for Pinot Noir. So
they get to pick a magnum.
Right. Last week the choice was between the 04 Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir, the 06 Pizzoni, and then the 2002 Burnside. So
2002 Burnside.
So,
that was my choice for them, but I think they picked the 04 Sonoma Coast.
Yeah, good choice too.
If I come to the winery, to the tasting room, who am I the most likely to find? Anne or Heather?
No, actually, you'll see Heather Patz. Heather Patz has been doing a lot of our seated tastings. She also hosts people at the bar. She's delightful and charming, and everyone falls in love with her when they meet her.
I just wanted to know, just so.
No, we're all working. We're all
family.
working, we're all working in the
we're the
winery
Halls
together.
and the Patzes, and so we divide everything up. All the partners still work in the business. Donald does national sales. Heather.
Donald's all the fucking place. I mean, it's like China. Well, it's just like, is it?
Donald's a traveling machine. Yes. And so I do the winery and vineyard, and Ann does sales, marketing, California sales.
No, he's working really
we're all working very hard. And the great thing
is the modern economy.
Yes, and the great thing about this winery, we all have a place where we can utilize our talent.
It's funny because you guys have been selling this in 1988, and you work.
25th anniversary.
Do you think that? Congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Thank you.
Do you think you're working harder now than you used to back in 1988?
Yes. Things are more complex.
Yeah, things are more complex. I think that competition is greater. There's more wineries. There's more established brands. There's other things that, and we're trying to be world-class wine. We're trying to sell internationally. We're trying to export. We're trying to have be widely distributed with our Appalachian wines.
You're doing a fantastic job. I mean, you really no, seriously. It's been you've been here for a long time. I know you. You always be you can. Well, no. I mean, I'm saying you cannot talk about Chardonnay or Pinot Noir in Napa Valley or in Northern California without talking about Patz Hall. I mean, you're really anchored. I mean, your footprint is there, and you're there. What do you think is the future of not a competition, the competition is competition, but where is Patz Hall, is going? It's more like, really develop the domestic market and be like more presence, or like go more international and open up, meaning like you may have to, the winery may not big enough, or I don't know.
Well, I think,
what is the,
I think what we really would like to do is continue to focus on making artisanal wine, trying to seek out great growers who we can partner with, being unique and distinctive single vineyard wines.
Did you find this balance, where, growing and find the right growers that can lead you to like, higher production? Because obviously this is a big place you have, but
we don't make
still,
that much
but still 16 labels, and this is, the competition is harder. So,
remember,
everybody coming up.
16 wines, but we made 120 cases of this.
Many of our bottlings
So it's like,
most of our bottlings are
120
under 1,000
cases.
I mean, we have our club wines that are exclusive to our club membership. Those are anywhere from 125 to 200 cases.
Yeah.
Sonoma Coast Chardonnay, which is our largest production, is about 9,000 cases.
Yeah.
So we have some wines that are in national distribution.
Yeah.
And some wines you can only get from the winery. Yeah. And the point is that we want to do everything well. So if you buy a bottle of our Pinot Noir in New York City and it's Sonoma Coast, it's going to be a great bottle of wine.
Yeah.
You come to the winery and taste Rude Vineyards, it's going to be a great bottle of wine. Yeah. And we don't want to lose that. Yeah. And one thing about being a small family business is we have one thing that makes it important, that's quality. And every single partner goes to sleep thinking about quality. And that's all we've got. Yeah. Constellation would steamroll. I mean, we've got nothing except quality. Yeah. And so that's the name of the game. If we get so big the quality suffers, we lose. Yeah. And, that's our mantra. It's got to be great.
No, I know that you guys are running a very tight operation, and it's really funny. Like, to me, how many people are working for you like during Crush?
Well, we hire seasonal interns, and we're very fortunate because we attract a really good group of people. And so typically it's people that have worked harvest or studying to be winemakers, enologists. The resumes are amazing. I mean, they're way better than when I started in the wine business.
Not domestic, but all from
American,
or
it's very challenging to hire people.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because of the visa requirements. But then we have, of course, our permanent staff. Yeah. And so I have my cellar master I've worked with for 15 years.
Yes, I met him today.
Yep, Chepin. Yeah. What a guy. I mean, really, really awesome.
Yeah, he has like, he's all this, like, you don't go anywhere without telling me where you go. Okay, well, just, I know where I'm standing. I mean,
it's a little bit like being a chef in a kitchen. Yeah. I get to go out and, act the chef, but I don't cook all the food. There's somebody there that's making certain that piece of fish is perfect. And, I look over his shoulder and go, it's perfect.
Dude, got you back, man. I'll tell you what.
And but then there's an assistant winemaker, cellar master, and assistant cellar master.
Those are like, like on a payroll, like,
those are the people that we have full time, and then we have a group of interns that come in during harvest that help us. Because, once we start picking, it's about 3 weeks, and we've finished picking because the window of ripeness is very narrow for both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
It's about 3 days. Yeah. So there's the early window and then the too late, and it's about 3 days long. And so if you miss the picking window, well, you screwed up. Yeah. That's it. Sure. Next year, dude.
Wow.
So it's about precision.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. And, we don't have a lot of rain here. Yeah. For us, it's more about sun and the amount of ripeness, perfect. But,
so I asked you, like, I asked you, like, a very stupid question, and the question was, if there was a place in the world where you love to make wine, where would it be? And you told me that would be California. So I realized that I was very stupid. So now I'm going to ask you another stupid question, and I'm going to ask you, if there was another great varietal you like to do besides Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, what would that be?
Syrah.
Syrah?
I would say Chenin.
Chenin? Oh, really?
I love Chenin Blanc.
Bon Louis, man.
Yeah.
Chenin could be. Now or maybe champagne. Thinking about the wines I love to drink.
Right.
But the one reason I
Riesling.
my
You
first
love
job in the
Riesling?
wine business was making Riesling. I mean, I love Riesling.
Are you guys are turning around like getting like a barrel of that from time to time or for like a.
We thought about this. We have a little rule.
Just for the hell of it.
Since we're partners, we have to have certain rules, and one of the rules is that if you want to make something besides Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, all the other partners buy 2 cases of wine for you and give it to you. You want to make Chenin Blanc, we give you 2 cases of Chenin Blanc.
Does it work?
Go off and drink your Chenin Blanc.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
It helps us keep focused.
Because you love a wine does not make it a good business decision. And so, we are, in Burgundy. I'm sure they drink plenty of, Sauvignon in Burgundy, and they love it, but they don't make it.
Yeah, but it seems to me because you're famous and well respected and you know what obviously you're doing, that a lot of people may want to give you some grapes and say hey James, why don't you take some of that and see what you can do about it, and so you have this guy, this dude coming up from somewhere getting some Riesling. You don't buy anything. The only thing you have is like a 1 year, 2 years old barrel, and this is it. It doesn't cost you anything. And have you tried it with I mean,
there's been things like, for instance, a late harvest wine. In 2011, we made a late harvest wine that you tasted, huh? That's pretty good, huh? And I'm fiddling around with some sparkling wine. But Chardonnay Pinot Noir.
Yeah. I know, sure. But I was more referring this not necessarily as a commercial,
Sure.
but for the fun of it, like the house wine, the Hall, Anne and James, or like
and the
something like that.
Or
I love
Grenache.
Grenache, but I'm not gonna be making a.
I love Grenache. Gigondas, Chef in the Top. It's a number of wines I don't like. It's like this big. So, there's lots of wonderful wines. How do you decide? And, I would love to. And, when as a winemaker, I have to be disciplined. And just because
and as
I love
business people, you have to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And I think that we have found that we've really seen success with staying focused.
Yeah. But when we go on vacation, we go places and taste all these other wines. We go to Burgundy, we go to the Rhone, we go to Italy, we go to Spain.
So you travel.
Oh yeah, and we go for wine.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'm definitely not disciplined. I'm from France. I'm a Gaulois. I'm a barbarian. Are you guys open to the public for barrel testing? Do you do this or not?
Certain times of year.
We do that for our releases.
Yeah. So there is quite a year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we typically our spring release we have at the winery, and that's an opportunity for people to taste some of our barrel samples.
I will encourage you to go and definitely sign up with a partner, because not only you have some incredible wines that I tasted today that I know will be available only on the mailing list, but the area of wine you can test out of the barrel is just absolutely amazing. And this is just such a pleasure talking to you. I could spend the rest of the day really.
We've gone over.
That's
the thing about wine is it's a great conversation.
Yeah, but some people are a little bit more interested in some others. And you definitely one of those persons is very charismatic. And having you tonight, you one of those you just hide somewhere. And
a ninja.
Yeah. This is awesome. This is fantastic. I want to thank you very, very, very much for coming and the opportunity of filming what you're doing, and I hope that we do you justice on the filming part of it.
No, it's going to be fabulous.
That was great. If you fucked it up, we do it again. Until we get it right. And this is it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing. That was, Patz Hall, the 2012 crush of the Dutton Vineyard, Ranch Vineyard, and
vintage of the century.
That's right. Well,
the vintage of the year.
The vintage of the year. I like that. Thank you very much, and see you next time.